Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're covering a developing story that has sparked intense international debate: the U.S. military operations in the Caribbean targeting suspected drug boats, all authorized by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in 2025 under the Trump administration. These operations, initiated in 2025 under the Trump administration, aim to combat rampant drug trafficking by officially designating Mexican and other cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, allowing for a more aggressive response. The strategy involved using lethal force against vessels believed to be carrying narcotics, with the clear and stated goal of eliminating so-called narco-terrorists who were seen as directly threatening the security of the U.S. homeland from the south. A key and highly controversial incident occurred on September 2, 2025, involving a strike on a vessel where two survivors were allegedly killed shortly after by what has been described as a double-tap strike, raising serious questions. This controversial order was reportedly authorized by Admiral Frank Bradley, who was acting on a verbal directive from Secretary Hegseth himself, reportedly to kill everyone on board such vessels to ensure no threats remained. This incident immediately raised significant legal and ethical concerns worldwide, particularly regarding violations of international law, since the survivors no longer posed an imminent threat after the initial strike. By November 2025, these strikes had tragically resulted in the deaths of over 70 individuals, mostly presumed traffickers, intensifying the scrutiny and calls for accountability on these operations. Secretary Hegseth staunchly defended the operations in public statements, asserting that they were fully lawful under U.S. policy and absolutely necessary to protect the homeland from the devastating drug threats pouring in. He maintained confidently that the targeted vessels were unequivocally involved in illicit narcotics smuggling, with concrete intelligence confirming their roles, thus fully justifying the use of decisive force. President Trump publicly supported Hegseth's stance without hesitation, stating emphatically that the boats carried enough drugs to harm tens of thousands of Americans, underscoring the human cost at stake. Trump further argued that these traffickers should be treated as unlawful combatants in the war on drugs, a position that drew sharp criticism from experts for potentially leading to extrajudicial killings without due process. However, President Trump later distanced himself somewhat from the specifics of the second strike in that incident, publicly opposing it and noting that Hegseth had denied issuing the most controversial order. This noticeable shift in narrative added yet another layer of complexity to an already contentious and politically charged situation, inevitably raising deeper questions about accountability and command responsibility. The Pentagon faced immense pressure for greater transparency on these operations, with lawmakers from both sides of the aisle in Congress calling for thorough, independent investigations into the strikes and their outcomes. On the international stage, the UN Human Rights Chief strongly condemned the strikes as unacceptable extrajudicial actions and a clear violation of established international humanitarian law. Venezuela also weighed in heavily, strongly condemning the U.S. actions as a legal aggression against sovereign interests in the region and demanding international repercussions. Secretary Hegseth fired back in response, accusing the media of fabricating sensational reports purely to discredit the military's vital and effective efforts against drug cartels. He reiterated firmly that the strikes were solely intended to stop the deadly flow of drugs into America and to eliminate narco-terrorists, regardless of the mounting criticism from abroad. The debate continues to unfold with no signs of resolution, highlighting the complex and often tense intersection of national security needs, international law obligations, and human rights considerations in the ongoing fight against drug trafficking. This story remains a critical and focal point of discussion for policymakers in Washington, legal experts analyzing the precedents, and human rights advocates worldwide monitoring the developments. We at the News Desk will continue to monitor these developments closely and bring you the very latest updates as this evolving and high-stakes situation progresses.